Hey guys, welcome back to another one of my videos. Now today I'm doing something a little bit different for you. I'm going to be showing you how you can produce a website in Adobe XD. Now this video is titled how to create a website in Adobe XD. However, we are just going to be creating this hero section here, and I've got the exact piece of work that we are going to do. So I've already mocked this up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through step by step how you can create exactly the same thing in Adobe XD, and some of the best practices with Adobe XD and how you can efficiently use the tool to create some real nice visual mockups. Now before I do walk you through this, please do hit the subscribe button. Okay, so let's get started. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create a brand new canvas. So when you start a project in Adobe XD, it gives you a couple of templated options that you might want to use. So iPhone screens, websites, Instagram stories, or you can just create your own custom sized canvas. And underneath you can see some of the most recent projects that I've completed within Adobe XD. I use it for all of my designs. It's an incredible tool. Okay, so let's just hit web 1920 by 1080 pixels. This has, now according to Google, this is the most common web dimension. I actually like working in it, but I'm sure it is up for debate. There's still a lot of people out there that likes to use smaller screen resolutions. However, today for this demo, I'm just going to stick with 1920. Okay, so this is our canvas. So the first thing that we want to do is show our grid. So if we go to view, show grid layout. And there we go, we've got a nice grid that we can work with. Now, I don't often like designing with the grid spacing being so narrow. So what I'd like to do is just click the canvas and you'll get your grid options on the right hand side. So I like changing the gutter width to around 40 pixels. And that's just going to create more spacing between each of your elements. I'm a huge fan of white space. I don't like designs that are cluttered. So that is what I do to try and achieve that. On some designs, I might even go as far to say I want 50 width or even 60. But for this design, let's just stick it at 40. Okay, so all of the main content within the design, excluding the image, I want to sit within this blue gridded area. So the logo would sit here, our navigation is going to sit here, and it won't go any further than the blue line. Okay, so what I want to do is draw a placeholder that we are going to place our main background image into. So in your tool set on the top left, we're just going to select the rectangle square icon, and we're just going to draw a box that matches the size of our design canvas. All right, so with this design, I want to create a nice thick white border that sits around the image. This is a photography website, and it's kind of going to mimic a type of Polaroid photo. So the best way to do this is, as I said, draw the shape in the background, and if we hold shift on our keyboard and press down, you'll see that the shape is moving down the page. So I want the space at the top to be at about 120 pixels. So I need this to go down 12 spaces. So if I knock this down 12 times, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can see on every time I move that here, you'll see what figure that space is at the top. So it's 120. All right, just drag that up. That takes care of the space at the top. Now, because I want 40 pixels at the bottom, I'm going to knock this down another 40. Okay, and then we can close that gap. And now if I knock it up 40, I've got 40 pixels at the bottom and 120 at the top. Okay, so now I want to do exactly the same on the outer edges. Now you can click and hold Alt, and it's going to drag it in like so. And you can see there that I've got a space of 40 pixels. So that creates my Polaroid effect. Now we need to put an image in the background. Now the great thing with Adobe XD is if you just load where your image is located. So here I've already got it in a folder. And we can click and drag, and we can drop it into the placeholder that we have produced, like so, and it's automatically going to mask it, which looks amazing. All right, so from here on the right hand panel, you can see that we've got a border on this. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's very subtle. But what we want to do is just remove that border, like so. And now if we double click into this, we've got the option to move this image within the mask. So make sure you're holding shift when you do this. It's going to move it up on a line, or it's going to move it across horizontally on a line. That's what happens when you hold shift. Otherwise it's kind of just a bit of a free-for-all. So I just want to move this up and kind of want the van a little bit off center on the horizontal line, so I don't want it hugging the bottom too much. Alright, so that takes care of our image, which looks awesome. Now guys, if you're not sure where to get images, there are loads of free libraries out there, such as Unsplash, we've got, and pexels.com. But there is a video on my channel which talks you through some of the best places to get free photography. Alright, so now what we want to do is create some sort of logo to go up here. So let me just zoom in a little bit, hold Alt and scroll in like so. And then we're going to click text. I'm just going to create a text box. And what I've called this is capture. And I'm going to create a couple spaces here and crop. Now if we highlight all of this, over on the right hand side we can choose our text. So I'm going to change this to a font called Playfair Display. We need this to be slightly larger. Let's make that 40. Cool. I want it to be black. Great. And now, in order to make this look a bit more like a logo, we just kind of need to remove some of the spacing in between each letter. So if we come over to our font settings again, and let's just go -50, like so. That looks awesome. So for now, I'm just going to remove that, leave that there. So you're probably wondering why I've left such a space, and that's because I want to create a coloured plus. So it's called then capture and crop. So let's just let's just go and click our rectangle. I want to zoom in a little bit further, and I'm going to draw a shape that is 4 pixels wide and 20 pixels high. So you can see here the shape size is 20 pixels high, so we want it 4 pixels wide. Cool. So now we need to choose a colour. Let's go with a blue, like so. Click out, and I want to remove the border there. Alright, so now let's click our cursor again. And what I want to do is right click, go to copy, right click, paste, and it's going to paste it on top. And I'm going to hold shift, go to the corner and rotate it like so. And we now have a plus icon. So I can click both of these. And we're going to group. Okay. So now you can see why I was adding a space within this text. I'm just going to add another space just to make sure that it's not too close. And there we go. Okay, so one thing that's really good with Adobe XD is it allows you to save all of your colors to a library. So if we right click our color and go to add color to assets, what it's going to do then is if we come down here to our library, it's going to add the color to our library like so. So if there's any other shapes or colors or elements that need colors within the page, we can just reference this color here. So it's really quite cool. Alright, so we just want to close the spacing that's here, and I can do that by clicking this over on our text settings. It's just going to give it an auto width. I'm just going to nudge this over ever so slightly. Select the both of them using shift, and I'm going to group them. There we go, they are grouped. And if we zoom out, you can see that we have a nice logo up at the top. Okay, so now let's take a look at our navigation. So we're going to need text again. We're just going to click on the screen, and it's going to load our previous font, which is actually a really neat feature of Adobe XD. But in this instance, we don't want to be using our logo font. We're going to give it something else like Montserrat. And I want the size of this to be 16 pixels. I want to change the font to bold, and then I can just click and type. Okay, so let's go with home. Now I'm going to click on our select tool again, zoom in, and what I'm going to do is hold Alt, click and drag, and it's going to pull out a duplicate of that previous navigation item. So this time I'm going to say about, and I'm going to click and drag it again. If you hold shift as well, it will keep it in the line, otherwise you risk it going out of line. So Alt and shift, click, drag. I'm going to go gallery, services, and contact, like so. Now I want the contact to be more prominent, so this is going to be our sort of call to action up on the top right hand side of the navigation. So I'm going to place this and style it like a button. Now the way that we do that is by clicking on our shape icon of the square again. I'm just going to click and drag it over our contact navigation item. Now I want to remove the border of this. Now what you can do is you can select a new color here, or I'm going to reference the color that already exists. So that creates consistency between the button and the color within the logo. So yeah, as I was saying, it's a really nice, really nice feature. So I want this button to be rounded, so I'm just going to click. So I'm just going to click and I'm going to drag these into the center, and you'll see that the button becomes rounding at each edge. Now the problem here is the button is overlapping the text. We want it to be the other way around. So you can either hold Command and do the back square bracket, and that's going to knock it back, or you can go to your layers panel and you can click on the rectangle shape and drag it behind the contact text item, like so. And you can see that it's now looking more like a button. So now what we want to do is make sure that our contact text is central to our button. So if we click on contact, hold shift and click the button, and right up at the top here we've got some alignment tools. So we're going to align it to the middle, and then we're going to align it to the center, like so. Now I kind of want this button to be a little bit wider, so I'm just going to click on each side, hold Alt, and just drag out like so. So once you're ready, change. I also want to change this to white. And there we go, that's looking like an awesome button. So I'm going to hold shift again, click both of them, and then we're just going to go to group, and it's going to group those. Now what I want to do is select the button and each one of these items, and I want to make sure that the spacing between each one is consistent. So I can click all of them, and then up on our alignment tool, if we click this one, it's going to make sure that each spacing is equal between each of the items. Now I'm just going to group these because this is our navigation item. Once it's grouped, let's just chuck it over to the side. Alright, and that is looking ace. So let's grab our navigation item and our logo, and I want to make sure that these are sitting horizontally equally. So I can do that here by clicking this middle align. And yeah, that looks fine, which is great. Cool, so that's our header done, guys. See how quick that was. So next on the design, we had a real large piece of text going over the image saying photography. So let's achieve that now. Let's click on the text icon. Now I want to drag it from edge to the screen, like so. Then in the center, I'm just going to write photography. And we can't see that because it's right over on the left. So double click inside, select all, and we're just going to make this bigger. So let's just start with like 250. Cool, that's close. So I'm going to keep the monster at and keep it bold, but I just want to knock this up. I'm going to reduce this to about 30, and I'm just going to continue knocking up the font size until it gets to the edge. Cool, so it's collapsed, so that tells me it's at the end. So I pull it back a little bit, and we're going to center align it like so, and that's it, just click off. Cool. So this is looking really good. So I want to make sure this is central to the image, so I'm just going to click on the text, and I'm going to click on the image, and we're just going to middle align it like so. Now guys, just one thing while I remember, going back to the header, just please don't overthink this. You know, this might be looking like a very basic header, and albeit it is, but I want you to remember navigation items and header bars all look the same for a reason, and that is because it is a design convention. Now you don't want people coming to your site and not really understanding what's going on or where things are and struggling to use it, otherwise they're just going to leave. So try not to overthink it, just keep things as simple as you possibly can, and then you can experiment more visually with your design rather than experimenting with conventions and compositions. Now going back to the rest of the design, we've got our photography, and now I want a little icon down here that tells the user that they can scroll down. Now obviously within this design, we're not building out the rest of the site, we're just doing that above the fold look and feel. It is, to be honest, actually my favourite part of designing a website. I love doing that hero bit right at the top. I want this a shape icon here to be circular, so I'm just going to click and drag that in, like so. What size is that? Cool, so let's just bump this up to 70. Alright, so let's go back to our colour library, and I'm going to choose that blue colour, get rid of the border, and let's just zoom in. Cool, so I want an arrow icon here. Now, we're just going to create it with our pen tool. Click pen up on the top left, and what I want to do is hold shift, click, come down, and holding shift is going to allow you to come down in a straight angle, so diagonally. Click, and then I want to click up on the other side and wait until that blue line appears and it meets the same height as the other side, and then I'm just going to click escape. Okay, now I want to now draw a line downwards, so I'm going to click pen again, click, and there we go. Now let's click escape, and that's going to come out, and you can see that we've got what resembles an arrow. Now I want this to be slightly shorter. Now click both parts of this arrow. I'm going to change the border color to white, and I want it to be slightly thicker, so if we go 2 pixels, and I want to round the corners, you'll see that it's quite sharp on the edges. I want to create a softer feel here. Excellent. So once that is done, I'm going to click, and we are going to group that. Once that's grouped, we're going to hold shift, select the circle as well, and we're just going to center align each of these so that arrow is placed directly in the middle. And then once that is done too, we are going to group those. All right, and there you have it. If I scroll up, we have a nice icon down at the bottom that suggests that the user can scroll down, which looks great. Cool. I also want some text over here on the left hand side, so I am going to click. I'm going to drag a text field in to take up 3 columns within our 12 column grid. Now you'll see that the font is already stupidly high, so let's just go and change that to 18 pixels. Cool, and if I type in there, that looks loads better already in terms of sizing. Let me move that over to the left. Alright, cool, let's put some proper text in there. I actually have some text off screen, so I'm just going to go and copy that and paste that in. Awesome, that looks great. Now you'll notice there's a small problem in that it's fairly difficult to read. So the way that you can overcome that is by just creating a subtle black shape in the background that fades out into the image. So we're going to do that now. So if we have this about that big, like so, remove the border. We want the color to be a gradient, so we're going to go linear gradient, and you'll see that it's fading from white to dark. So what we want to do is actually, we want to create dark to dark, so dark at the bottom, dark at the top. However, with the top one, because we want this to fade out, we need to drag our opacity down to 0, and you can see now that it's fading from black to nothing, which is really nice, and it's a great way for being able to bring out text and other elements like on top of a photograph. So you'll see we're having the same problem that we had with our button, in that the layering isn't quite right. So if we head back to layers, you see that this rectangle is there. What I want to do is I want to bring that right down in front of the image. Oh, make sure it's not in the folder, guys. And you'll see that it's now on top of the image but behind everything else, and our text is really readable. Now this is really harsh, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag down the opacity to around 25. I think that works really well. Now sometimes, guys, if you feel like your text still isn't that readable, what you can do is click it and add a drop shadow. So if we were to add a drop shadow here, maybe put the spread at like 15, you might not notice what's happening. But if I was to remove the shadow, you can see that it's just a little bit more readable with the shadow on. Okay, so that's just a nice little tip for you. Cool, the next part of this design was to create a navigation items or navigational controls for the carousel that's in the background. So I want this to be a carousel, I want these images to change, So let's create some controls for that now down on the bottom right side. So I'm going to hold Alt again and scroll in. I want these arrows, so I'm just going to double click inside this. You'll see in the layers panel that it's coming into the group, and it's got a group of 5, so that is actually our 2 arrows. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to click back outside of our group so it goes back to the canvas, and I'm going to paste, like so. And it's pasted our arrows on top of the last ones, but if I click and drag, you will see that we now have some arrows. So again, it's creating design consistency there. We're not worrying about having to draw new shapes or draw a new arrow, because then we run the risk of it not looking the same. So if we can just copy and paste elements that we've already got, that is really useful. So I'm going to rotate this to point to the right. Okay, I'm going to hold spacebar and click and drag. And I'm just going to place this around about there. Cool. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy and paste. Oh, wrong shape. I'm going to hold Shift, drag that along, and I want to rotate this one, like so. So there we've got some controls. I also want to add a little text counter. So if we just click our text icon, click here like so, and I want this to be like 3 out of 8. Okay. Now I want the emphasis to be on the 3, so I'm just going to make this a little bit more subtle and change the opacity to like 50%. There we go. And you can see that the 8 is a lot less visible, but the 3, that is where the focus is at, because I want to show that this is the 3rd image within a gallery of 8 slides. So I'm just going to center align this like so. Cool, and then click on select. While this is selected, I'm just going to change the width to be auto. And I want this to be, I'm just going to move it like 10 pixels away from the arrow. And I want this arrow to be, I'm holding shift and moving left here. So I want that to be 10 pixels away from there, like so. Cool, so if we scroll out, cool. So that looks great. Let's get rid of our guides. If we hold Command Shift, the comma icon, if you're not sure what I'm pressing here, you can go up to View, Show Grid Layout. So they are the keys that I am pressing on my computer. So we can show them, or we can. Now guys, one thing before we finish up that I want to show you that's really cool with Adobe XD is if we head back down to our library of assets, we've got our color asset in here. Now, not only is it great for creating design consistency and simplicity for just applying colors to elements within your design, if, for example, you've got a client that requests a color change, you actually do not need to go through and change the color individually for each item. You can just come up here, right click and click edit. And if we just select a new color, so let's just go red, you can see that the colors for each of these items that we've applied using our color asset are changing, which is honestly, this was an absolute game changer when they released this feature. So yeah, it's ideal. So I'm just going to click Command Z just to come out of that and undo that. The other thing that you can do is you can right click on fonts and you can go down to add character style to assets, and there you go, it's going to add a character style. So the same thing applies here. If you are creating a website and you want font consistency, you can just, you know, if I give you an example here, we can just type cool. So let's say it just decided to throw out another font. Now to create font consistency, we've applied this to our character styles, and we can just click that, and it's going to replicate it. Now, if we then wanted to change this character style, we could just right click, click edit. We can change our font. We can change the color, and you'll see that it's changing it live for both elements. So yeah, that's a real nice feature of Adobe XD. I just wanted to throw that in there just before we finish up. Now we have finished what we were set out to do, and it looks awesome. Like, hopefully you've found this valuable. You've understood that not to overthink the header. You now know how to create like a logo using typeface and just removing the spacing. Yeah, it's a very quick and easy way to create logos. You've been able to create spacing within your menu items. We've got this awesome image in the background. All of our content is sat within the 12 grid system, so our logo, text, controls, and our button is all within our grid system, and you'll see that we've kind of broken the rules with the grid system for the image and the text. That works absolutely fine because they are just visual elements. It's not text, it's not important, it's not going to affect the user experience. It's completely subjective, and it's just a design decision that I decided to make with this design to make this look much more visually pleasing. So yeah, hopefully you found this valuable. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it, and it will help the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification too. You'll be notified of any of my future releases, and go check out the other content on the site. If you are a web designer looking to improve your web design skills, or just learn how to find clients so you can start making more money within your business, you're going to find my content really valuable. So make sure that you go and check that out. And that's it from me today, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.